Okay, we're going to discuss the problem with almost every Bible, with some rare exceptions, that have committed a theological crime of removing the name of God from the Bible. 6,823 times, according to Riri Study Bible. So the name of Yahweh should be produced in every Bible. It was, I'm going to just use English letters, WHWH. Usually it's understood to be pronounced Yahweh, but some people say it's Yehovah, Yehovah, whatever. But whatever name it is, you should put those initials down and let the people at least know there's a name there, a personal name belonging to God, the Father of heaven. Okay, so we can even find it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I have a little mark there. If you see here, this is a representation that the name was written down. I think this is Paleo Hebrew, actually. But regardless, it was in the scriptures. And but yet it's been translated. You see the word Lord. One of the reasons they do this and don't want to fix this is that even though it gives you a false version of the Bible, it serves their purpose, because then when the word Kyrios is used in the New Testament, which is a word that can be translated as Lord, they like to use, whenever Jesus is being addressed as Kyrios, they'll put the word Lord. But if anyone but Jesus is referred to, they'll change it to Sir, because the word in Greek, Kyrios, was how you would address somebody as a Sir. Hello, sir. How are you? Hello, Kyrios. So if you're a customer, you might call him Hello, Kyrios. But when it's Jesus, it's called Lord, and when it's not Jesus, it's called Sir. And so it's manipulative, okay? And then the way it works is that you get used to seeing the word Lord in the original Bible, and you think that means God's name is Lord, or that's appropriate. That is by definition how to refer to God, when it's false. The way to refer to God is by his actual name, and Jesus said, I made your name known. So it's a crime. It's a crime. It's a crime to not put the word in the Bible that's right there. If God didn't intend for it to be printed, then why did he give us it in print? It's his name. And literally, if someone had to figure out, did God ever put his name in the Bible, you would never know. He did. He did. He did in the original text. And you know that from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's a myth and a superstition, as we'll come to see in a minute, that took it out. So let's take a look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, Psalm 119. I think that's coming up next here. Okay, no, first of all, we're going to cover here's the manuscripts that the big overview of pictures. The Christians have now perpetuated the same suppression that started in Judaism. And by the way, this was due to a Septuagint mistranslation in Leviticus that said naming the name was blasphemy. So if you said the word Yahweh, they had changed through the Septuagint Greek mistranslation of the Bible. They made it that just sounding the name was blasphemy, instead of what it actually said is, speaking a falsehood about Yahweh was blasphemy. So the Greek Septuagint did so much harm, and that was issued in about 257 BC. So this doctrine that you couldn't utter the name started to permeate into Jewish society by the time of Christ, and since then their Bibles never replicate the Bible correctly either. So, and we don't do it because it serves our argument to sustain the Trinity by using the word Lord for Jesus in the New Testament, and then you get confused and you don't know why they're calling God Yahweh Lord in the original Bible, and then you start to fuse the two in your brain, and so it just helps their argument when it's just a complete crime against the Word of God. Okay, so here it is. The books on the left are the Bibles that use Lord, for example, King James 1611, NIV 1978 to 2020. I'm sure it's still today, but I just did this slideshow in 2020, so I wrote it down. Every other mainstream Bible except those on the right use Lord. Okay, so let's see the ones on the right that don't use Lord. Darby, he used Jehovah in 1867. Young's used Jehovah in 1898. The American Standard Version is probably the most normal mainstream that actually broke ranks and explains itself in its preface. It used Jehovah in 1901, and then we have a free Bible by an amateur, which amateurs will break ranks from this stodgy idea of suppressing God's name from the Bible. World English Bible by Michael Johnson. Shout out to him. And I like the fact he uses Yahweh because that's now the more correctly understood pronunciation. as far as I'm concerned. You may think it's something else. 1997. So let's now go on and see the explanation by the American Standard Version in 1901. This is what they wrote. This is a preface to the ASV, American Standard Version, 1901. The translators were brought to the unanimous conviction that a Jewish superstition which regarded the divine name as too sacred to be uttered ought no longer to dominate in the English or any other version of the Old Testament. This personal name with its wealth of sacred association is now restored to the place in the sacred text to which it has an unquestionable claim. So, unquestionably, this is a fact. What is shocking is that nobody paid attention to what they're doing. And they're a major translation, right? The NIV doesn't change. Nobody even goes back and fixes the KJV and reissues it with the God's name in there. I mean, why? What is the justification to continue this fraud? The ESV does it. Oh, but we capitalize the letters in such a way you would know. Sure, if I'm willing to read your preface of 23 pages and get to the actual little paragraph where you explain that, and I can remember whether it's Lord, all caps, that's Yahweh, Lord in initial cap, that's not Yahweh, that's maybe it means Adonai. I mean, nobody is being honest with people. This is more lies. Lies on top of lies on top of lies. When you start lying, you can't stop lying. And if you are willing to tamper with the text, which this is, because your ancestors tampered with the text, meaning the people before us, are the only explanation why they would have done this. The KJV made this decision. No, they used the word Lord, and maybe Tyndale did. I don't know. Whoever started this. We're just doing it because of tradition. This is obscene. The ASV made a good statement of fact. It's a superstition. Worse than that, what it really is a mistranslation. So in Leviticus, I think it's 23, we did an article on this, a video article. It says naming the name was blasphemy. So if someone actually uttered the name Yahweh, they were guilty of blasphemy, and they could be tried and convicted. Okay, and I have a video that explains that when Jesus is in front of the high priest, what he does is he says, you'll see me coming on the clouds of power. Well, that's what it reads in our Bibles, but actually it said Yahweh. And the reason we know that is that the high priest then rents his clothes, which was how they were supposed to respond in those days when you name the name. And so they were following in the 1st century, 2nd century, they were already following that there was a crime if you actually sounded out the name verbally because of a Septuagint mistranslation that defined blasphemy as just naming the name, when in fact the Bible verse doesn't say that. It says using the name for falsehood, basically saying something false about God and so on. So that's the origin of it. It was a mistake. Jesus was killed because of this mistake, because the high priest said, what more do we need? He's already committed blasphemy. And what he's really saying is he named the name, and it was not power. And just so you know, in our early church fathers, I shouldn't say that, early church translators used the same mysterious, let's not translate the name Yahweh, let's be sensitive to our Jewish brothers and sisters who are, offended or afraid. No, you obey God. If he put his name there, you have to do it. Because really, archaeologically speaking, if for somehow this world got burned down, could anyone prove by evidence that God had ever revealed his name and that it had ever been in the Bible? You'd have to say that 99% of everything printed does not have his name in there, when it is originally in there. That means somebody has to start fixing this, start reversing this process, and put his name back in the Bible. 6,823 times my Bible is lying to me about what's on the page. 6,823 times is almost like, how many pages could there be? 600, maybe 1,000 pages. It's almost like every page has a lie on it because you won't tell me his name. Unbelievable. Okay. And I just want to show you something. Why this, you can see how permissible it was to use God's name, because in the Psalter, the Psalms, inside of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they actually showed you how people used them. And they hand wrote in the refrain, and I'm going to show you this. So let's say Psalm 145, Yahweh upholds all who fall. So first of all, you can see the name there. They're not hiding it like it will happen later. Bibles produced within Judaism in the 800s, the Masoretes, they're going to remove it. They're going to put Adonai in, okay? But here at the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we're talking 200 to 145 BC. No, they're okay with putting down the name of Yahweh. That's the way it should be, because that's the way it was. And then the refrain was, praise Yahweh and praise his name forever and ever. And by the way, if you go to this site here, the Dead Sea Scroll English Bible, dssenglishbible.com, go to /Psalms, go to the whatever, you'll see it'll come up. You go to Psalm 145, and you can put this as part of your prayer service. You'll be doing something that believers in Yahweh were doing 145 to 200 BC, okay? And so they would say, the people were actually refraining and saying in a refrain, praise Yahweh and praise his name forever and ever. And then verse 15, the eyes of all wait for you. You give them their food in due season. And then the refrain is written again in between the verses, praise Yahweh and praise his name forever. And the same thing with each one of the verses. I'm giving you a sample here. So this tells us there was no fear ever. It was a superstition created by a false Greek Septuagint translation. Okay, so that's the end of my little spiel here. Somehow, some way, we have to stop this. We have to stop this. We have to encourage those people who write up the Bibles. We would like a true and accurate Bible when the name of God appears, and that should be standard. And if you don't want to do that, at least do something like this. Don't capitalize Lord. Don't, to put it in block capitals, like, where only if you could look at the fine line. Why don't you do this? Why don't you put it, if you need to put the word Lord in and you don't want to take it out, at least put in brackets SIC : Yahweh. Okay? Sick means mistake. Shouldn't be Lord. And we, the editors, are correcting it to show the actual letters there are YHWH. Just do something like that so the reader could go, oh, so Lord is a mistake. You're admitting the King James, for example, made a mistake. So make that clear. SIC : Put it in correctly. Or any other Bible you're editing from the past that you're afraid, we're not allowed to tamper with the King James. No. If the King James committed a crime against God, which this is a crime to suppress his name. Don't you see that? Please, everybody. It's a crime. So put in brackets, put in what was corrected that way. In an NIV, if you are somehow afraid of fixing this, then put in SIC and maybe put a little note. Our 1972 editors made this big mistake, and we don't want to change what they wrote, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to put SIC : WHYH to indicate that they made a mistake. So do whatever you got to do. If you can't give up this word Lord, if you just want to keep perpetuating us thinking that Jesus is the Lord God because you won't take it out of the original Bible, you know what? We're wising up to you guys. So we're not even fooled by that anymore, okay? So put in this SIC : WHWH. We made a mistake. Our ancestors made a mistake. The original editor's mistake. Whoever you want to blame, fix it. That's the bottom line. We've got to get this fixed. This is like very urgent. People say, oh, what about, world hunger, whatever. Do you want to know something? I think God cares more about his name than all of that. And I don't mean that God doesn't care about people's hunger. He cares that we respect him. If you don't have respect for God, for his name, you're pretending you have respect. Oh, I respect it so much, I don't want anyone to say it too lightly. No, Jesus said, I taught them your name. You teach people his name. You're teaching not to even know God's name. That's what's going on. We need to put it back. And then if you think there's a controversy of how to pronounce it, put in WYHWH and people can go find out how to pronounce that. Fine. If you don't have any courage of guts, that's okay. We can understand that. One last thing I want to tell you is the reason we know, this has been fascinating. If you go to the Judaism Encyclopedia, do you know why they say we know how to pronounce Yahweh? We made no records of how to pronounce it, but you know who did? Remember that guy named Jesus who said he told his followers how to say the name of God? I taught them your name. You know what? It turned out his followers wrote down how to pronounce the name in the 1st and 2nd century AD. And that's how we know how to pronounce the name of God. We didn't keep any records, but thank God that Jesus told his disciples. I'm being facetious. They didn't say thank Jesus. But that's really what it was. Thank Jesus for teaching his disciples how to preach. How to pronounce the name of God, because had Jesus not done that, apparently the Jewish people were not keeping any record of how to properly pronounce it. And that's how we know it's Yahweh, because Jesus taught our disciples, the apostles, or whoever was the people who wrote these letters down and actually gave the pronunciation. That's the only way it can be recovered. Do you realize that? Go look at the Jewish Encyclopedia. So anyway, God bless. I hope this helped everybody. We need to work as a team to get pressure on them to stop this seemingly endless crime against the name of God. Okay, ciao. Bye.